We have a new week on deck. Looks like I'm 10 seconds late, but that's alright. We ain't gonna let nothing stop us. We're gonna just keep doing what we do. So if you get that random amount of silence or blandness in the intro, just let it happen. What's good, y'all? Brightay Podcast back at it again, and I must admit, it is a blessing. Or as the famous saying goes, what a time to be alive. I truly and honestly must say I have a lot of topics to go into today. Some of them will be unique. A lot of them will probably be pretty random, and that's okay. All I'm here to do is let the content do what it does and share what I feel. I've had a lot of stories that hit over the past week, and I'm kind of going to mix and match as to how I discuss or address a lot of these topics, but I'm literally going to let it rip with the flow of what we have. So we're getting socially out there as usual, getting all that done. So if you are in the sports group and you all have either just seen the post or are about to see the post, whether you're listening live or if you listen on demand, you all are greatly appreciated, and trust me, every listen helps, so all listens matter. Anyway, first topic that I'm going to jump into, I'm not going to give really a long conversation about it, but on today, it was acknowledged that they did do the farewell or the homegoing service I'm going to use for Jose Fernandez. So to kind of give it, because the story was addressed, but it wasn't detailed fully. It may have been, but it wasn't really given full. It was, kind of given that he passed, but didn't really say everything. So Jose Fernandez, who is 24 years old, and two of his friends were killed in a boating accident early Sunday. It was a major shock to the Miami Marlins, as well as to the baseball world as a whole. He's been just on a come up in his career. So, for to have this story happen like it did, or had a situation happen like it did, was very unexpected. But it's one of those, things happen, life hits. You're kind of put into that place of just learning how to just move on and face life as it comes. So, that's the best thing I can say towards that scenario. I really, send out my condolences and, heartfelt sympathy to his family, because I know that's not something that's easy to face or deal with. One of the unique things that the Marlins did, which I think was a very respectful gesture, is number one, everybody on the team, the first game that he was expected, the following game he was expected to start, they all wore his jersey, which I thought was pretty dope. And I've always had a concern or a question about this, but it also was like the education of know-how in realizing that why don't teams do tributes like this, but then it also is kind of a acknowledgement, as well as if something happens in a game, you can't really confirm who's who. In baseball, it really isn't as big of an impact, because more so players wear numbers just for their preference of numbers, or things of that sort. So for that game, everybody wore his jersey. And also the other gesture, which I thought was excellent, was a different pitcher pitched each inning for Florida. So I'm sorry, for Miami. I'm so used to calling them the Florida Marlins, because that's how I know them. But nonetheless, that was just a big thing, and it was a big deal that that happened the way it did. So that's my main input on that story. Next story is me being a bit of a salty power mouth. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of double up on this, because one of these won't be in the article or in the image that you may see. Carolina lost this weekend, and I was a little salty about it. I will admit it. I had some brief stints of Snapchatting that I was doing to share my thoughts towards how excited I was to see or realize that they had lost. It was tough because normally I'll sit and watch the game. Now that I got a way of watching a lot of different shows, but I intended to try and watch the game. Didn't really watch it, but I was getting scores and updates as they came. First half we were ahead 10-8, I believe, and then for whatever reason Carolina forgot it was 2 halves, so the second half just went awry and pretty much fell apart before it even got started. So that occurred, and then on Saturday afternoon, Chelsea played Arsenal. Go Blues. Of course, Arsenal came to play, and in the first half off the pitch, they got 3 goals from Sanchez, Walcott, and Ozil. They pretty much just outplayed Chelsea. For bottom line, there's really not like a fabricated or pretty way of saying it, so it kind of went the way it did, and it literally was what it was. So that one was an unexpected blow, but it teaches the team to kind of get on their grind and understand what it's all about. Because right now, I believe Chelsea is in, I want to say 9th or 10th place on the league rankings as far as how they're looking to, when it comes down to their Premier League stature. So it literally becomes a week by week process. Because I think what happens is we look at it like, oh, the little games, we'll get those, but it's the big important games that you really need. Chelsea, Man U, Man City, West Ham, the list goes on and on. Next topic, and I always love doing this because it's so amazing how things can just turn in the blink of an eye. And in Fantasy League, literally what a difference a week makes. Oddly enough, my record matches, my Fantasy League record matches my football team's record, which is 1-2. So I played against someone, and I think I had the most points last week. Got over 140 points. One of the guys who was on my team, I let go. Hasn't really been doing much production-wise, so brought in Victor Cruz. We'll see how that goes. If anyone knows any low-ranking, underrated, off-the-radar tight ends that are good pickups, please share. If you have the information, don't be selfish. I'm so serious. Right now I'm in a tough spot because I had to sit Dez and Jonathan Stewart. Stewart's been out. He hasn't really been full health, so I've kind of had to just let him sit back and just chill. And Dez, they kind of say it is like a day to day until they give like a legitimate status, on Saturday night as to whether he's going to play Sunday or if it's Sunday the day of. Unless it's a 4:00 game, I'm going to see what I can do and whether I can put him in or whether I just got to sit him and just literally eat crows. So just keeping you all posted on my famous and fun madness known as my fantasy league. So that's where I'm at with that. And my next topic is all about the age-old rule and theory of you never leave a game when you think the game isn't going the way you want it to go, or if your team isn't playing up to par. A couple of years ago, Miami was playing someone, I can't remember the team, but I'm sorry, I guess I should mention sports. In the NBA, the Miami Heat were playing against another team. This is back when LeBron played, and for whatever reason, some players took it in their best interest to just up and leave because they didn't think that Miami would finish the game, or they didn't think Miami was going to win the game. Well, when they left and realized that Miami was winning, all of a sudden they wanted to come back in and get their seats. No. You've given up your seat, you've given up your opportunity to witness the game, or possibly a comeback. So don't call it a comeback. Yeah, I went there. But they come back or they want to come back only to realize that the team won the game. So Tennessee, a couple of fans did the same thing. Score was 21-3 at half. They were playing against Florida, one of their SEC foes, and they left. Looked like it was a damper and we had no chance. The sad part is the final score ended up being 38-28 with Tennessee winning. And of course they sit there and they get this look of loss, like, I wish we didn't leave. We should have stayed, because it would have been a joyous occasion to witness such a comeback. But when you make bad decisions, you gotta live with it. So that's how I feel about that. And now I'm gonna kind of go into like my odd section of my podcast, I guess you can say that. First thing, Swin Cash, who has played for quite a few teams in the WNBA, has finally retired. She kept it. She kept it in line. Like, she never gave up on herself. Like, she's one. She was number one. She went to UConn. Need I say more? When you play for UConn, you understand and have a culture to win. So when she got into the WNBA, it really wasn't much difference. Let's see. I want to just check one thing, because I want to say, yes, she has 3 championships in the WNBA, which is remarkable if you really look at it. In 15 years to win 3 championships in the league is pretty solid. Yes, we can play the whole. Well, she won them after Cynthia Cooper played. That's not a problem. But anyway, Swing Cash did call it quits. I did not mention it, but gosh, I can't remember her name. She's with the Indiana Fever. A couple of other players are on the verge of, if they have not retired yet. And I'm so bad, because I wanted to say Shamiqua Holdsclaw, and I'm going to look it up because I'm a bad fan and I don't like that. Sorry, you're gonna hear typing. It's gonna just let it happen. Thank you. Brain cell came back. Tamika Catchings. This was her last season as well, and I mean, she's been pretty much a huge impact with the WNBA. She was able to get her championship before she rode off into the sunset. So that was a big, that was big news, whether people realize it or not. So there's that. And then anyone who knows me, this is probably going to be my personal, I want to say meat and potatoes of the podcast, because it probably won't, but the truth of the matter is, anybody who knew me coming up as a kid, watching me being in basketball, yeah, they'll hear me say, oh, I was a big Kevin Garnett. a big Kevin Johnson fan. Yes. Won't deny it, won't argue it. Upset in my feelings when they played against the Bulls and lost in the championship game. Kind of felt like Charles Barkley was MVP during the regular season and disappeared in the postseason, but it was a team effort, neither here nor there. My guy, my dude, was Kevin Garnett. Every time I think of Kevin Garnett, the same thing crosses my brain. 20 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. The most consistent stats that he kept throughout his career in the NBA. Most times it would increase, other times it would decrease. My personal opinion, he was in his prime in Minnesota, but after 12 years in being in Minnesota and him leaving and kind of trailblazing from team to team and kind of setting his mark as to what he wanted to do, and he went to Boston and kind of helped them get a championship. Excuse me. You slowly started to see his career decline only because he put himself out there as far as when it came to playing the game. It's not the whole he played blood, put his blood, sweat, and tears out there. That's the redundant, obvious statement that everyone makes. But what he did the most that a lot of people don't give him credit for is that yes, he talked trash, he talked smack about everyone and anyone that was on the other side of the court playing against him. The whole Honey Nut Cheerio reference with Carmelo, the Happy Mother's Day to Tim Duncan when his mom wasn't living. Kevin Garnett just had no chill. But the thing was, he kept it on court. Off court, he was a goofball, but he was him. And when it came to basketball, he put it all out there. He was the guy that would go after loose balls for saves like no other. Like Dennis Rodman doing it back in the day, yes, but Kevin Garnett had no chill when it came to going for a loose ball. He just would make it clear, hey, this is mine, I'm going for it, I want it, yep, and there it is. So big props to him for that. I want to say this, and I'm saying this because I think it's something that's not noted or not acknowledged when it comes to Garnett. Garnett understood himself as a player, and a lot of people didn't understand him as a player because of how he played. He played at 100% all the time. I'm not gonna sit here and go, oh, he played 110%. No, he gave his best effort when he was able to play. If there was a game that he played and he was not feeling that full game, it would show in the stats and it would show in his gameplay. But the chance of him, the opportunity he took and the opportunity or moment of winning a championship in Boston was a key cemented piece to his legacy or his career in the NBA. So, stating that conversation or discussing that whole ordeal about Garnett brings up an interesting scenario that happened this year. In the NBA, we lost 3 of the biggest names in 1 year. I'm not saying loss is in there, they passed or anything, but 3 players all faded into the sunset at the same time. Now, before I mention it, I'm going to say one thing and then I'll jump into those 3 names. With Garnett leaving now, and it's an interesting scenario because Slam Magazine, I thought, did a very humbling / respectful piece on the passing of the torch, because Karl Anthony Towns pretty much has a similar gameplay and a similar style to Garnett. And one thing that Garnett did that I thought it was coincidental that a lot of players try to do it now, but his I think is better, is when players are doing shoot arounds, like say a referee calls a foul and a player's like, oh well, I'm gonna take this shot while I can take a shot, just shoot it. Garnett was that one who would just swat it just because. Now granted, I'm not that tall, but there are moments that I wish I could be able to do what he did, because he would either palm the ball and take it off from the rim, or he would just swat it away, period. Because it was just his go-to thing. I really loved that about him, just his intensity and just his effort of playing. That was something that I'll always remember and know with him as a player. So I just want to say that. And like I said, Karl Anthony Towns has some big shoes to fill. Yes, we know, and it's only his 2nd year. But I think between Garnett being with the team and Garnett still kind of like being like a mentor for him, it'll help him build and develop his game to get to a good status with the Minnesota Timberwolves and wherever it takes his career. So I just wanted to, point it out and address that. And I know that was kind of like a random ramble, but you know me. And my final, well, you know what? I'm going to be a little, and I feel bad because I'm skipping a topic and I need to make sure I remember to point it out. So there are 3 names in the NBA, and if you have the image or you're looking at the image either on Instagram, on Facebook, or through Twitter, there are 3 guys in the NBA who all retired and all literally left major marks on the NBA. Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, and Tim Duncan. Now, between these three guys, you have, and this stat still is like an astonishing stat to me. You have 48 All-Star appearances, 4 MVPs, and 11 championships. And I'm gonna say something really brief to really put things into perspective. It's an amazing thing to me because I will never forget it. There was a point where the regular season MVP was solely based on regular season. But what they would do is wait until your first round matchups were played. And if you finished or did what you were supposed to do in that first round, then that mainly factored into whether you had a chance or were in the running for getting the MVP trophy. There was one year Garnett should have got it and he didn't. But then the following year, it was almost like it was a makeup or a recovery, I feel like, and he earned the MVP. So I always resort back to that when thinking about him as a player. But even with the other, even with Kobe and Duncan, like, Duncan had the most boring basketball game, but Duncan was very knowledgeable when it came to what he was capable of doing in the NBA. And the same applies with Kobe. I mean, Kobe, when it's 5 guys on the court, you can worry about anybody you want to, but Kobe was the one that you really had to keep your eye on because he could score at will. Duncan wasn't a big scorer. Duncan was just a fundamentally sound player that just could out. So here's how I'm gonna assess these three, and then I'm gonna go into my second to last topic. Duncan was the thinker who just knew what to do and how to do it. Kobe was a thinker as well, but Kobe was a scoring force and was able to handle his on both ends, but it was primarily offense. Garnett was more known for defense, but Garnett had an intense mindset when it came to the game. Like, there was never a game he didn't slack off. And again, I'm giving these accolades to each player, but it's not saying that the other ones didn't, because trust me, Duncan didn't slack either. Duncan would sit and score points, and you look and it'd be like, wait, it's the third quarter, and how did he get 25 points without blinking? One year I tried it, and it was not the best experience, but I did NBA Fantasy League. Don't know what I was thinking, but I want to say on my team that I had Tim Duncan. And I made sure I kept Tim Duncan as much as I could because I knew he would give me the points and the rebounds I needed to get to the next level. And speaking of next level, I don't watch a lot of golf, and it's not even because Tiger Woods isn't playing, because that has nothing to do with it. But anytime you talk about golf, one name will always come to mind, and that's Arnold Palmer. Most people who are young or out of touch with life typically think of Arnold Palmer in regards to the tee. Most millennials who are doing so may know the Arnold Palmer drink, which is a tea and it's a drink or whatever that's made at bars or whatever. But Arnold Palmer, who was mainly the key face of golf, and anybody who wanted information and was looking for a go-to guy, he passed. And he was 87 years young. I found it funny because I didn't realize his birthday was a couple of days after mine, so that was like a random fact for me. And he passed in the same month that he was born. So his birthday happened, and then everything happened. They're stating that the cause of his death was complications of heart problems. And he had passed at the UPMC Shadyside Hospital. So, I mean, when it comes to words about him, I mean, the guy was just, I think every time I think about him, and this is just a random little tidbit for me, anytime I think about him, I always think about the commercial he did with ESPN where he was making his, like, everyone was getting drinks. They had 2 separate drinks at the counter, and when he came up, he got half of one drink and then half of another drink, and it was like they looked at him like, oh my god, that was so amazing. And it's so coincidental that because of that, and I think just in general, Arizona iced tea didn't miss out on the opportunity, and they made half and half drinks, similar to what he would do is how he made his drinks. I personally like the lemonade and pink lemonade. That was, I think, my favorite one. I think out of all of them. So, that was a intriguing scenario of events. But yeah, having him pass like that is a tough story to address. But he's an icon when it comes to golf. But even if you don't watch golf, if you talk about sports, he comes up in conversations time and time again. So, big story. Just wanted to make sure I presented that and threw that in the queue as well. Final story. Well, and I always forget because I need to make sure I don't have it written, but I need to go ahead and get that prepared. Portion of the final story is CJ Spiller was picked up by the Seattle Seahawks. I think it'll be a big pickup. It's coincidental because literally it's almost like Ty's turn because he left New Orleans and went to Seattle. Gosh, I can't do it. And I have him on my team. The tight end, Jimmy Graham. Thank goodness I got my brain back. Jimmy Graham left New Orleans, went to Seattle. Graham's been struggling. Hopefully Spiller doesn't. Just have to wait and see. We're going to give positive vibes to it and let it happen. And now, my favorite part of the podcast, and it's confirmation that I am capping it off because I've really been rambling for a while. Didn't realize till I looked at the clock. But I'm gonna go ahead and give my picks for week 4. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and let you all know in advance. I did not do week 1 because I didn't expect to be doing picks for NFL until I started doing them after week 1. And it became a trend of, okay, here are the teams I'm looking at week 2, week 3, week 4, whatever. So, currently my record is, let me make sure I get this right, 17-15, because last week I went 8-8. So, yay me. This week I have an opportunity. I'm either bound to go 8-7 or 7-8. It always and obviously never fails. So I'm just gonna go down the list, name the matchups, go state who I have winning. Soon I'm gonna do details, but I think that'll be like one of those I gotta make a separate podcast just talking about that. But anyway, Miami and Cincinnati, I have Miami. Indianapolis at Jacksonville, I have Indianapolis. Buffalo and New England, obvious New England. Seattle and New York, Jets, I have Seattle. Detroit at Chicago, picking Detroit. Carolina at Atlanta, picking Carolina. Could have been my upset pick, but I went with the house. Oakland at Baltimore, picked Baltimore. Tennessee at Houston. Tennessee, Watt's out. Watt could possibly be out for the year. No one's confirming that information yet. Cleveland at Washington. Almost made this my upset pick. Picked Washington. Denver at Tampa Bay. Went with Denver. Rams at Arizona. LA Rams at Arizona. New Orleans at San Diego. New Orleans. Dallas at San Francisco. Probably my wild card, but I picked San Francisco. Kansas City at Pittsburgh. I have Pittsburgh. And finally, Giants at Minnesota. Went Giants. So I'm going to have those written and added and placed into my blog as always. If you do listen to the podcast, I do appreciate it. If you want a brief verbal discussion of what was talked about in the podcast, I do write blogs the following day or within the week of the podcast to make sure that some information is out there for people to know what's going on. So I guess it's like no post left behind. But anywho, that is going to do it. If you aren't already following my podcast, I am on Facebook under Brate Podcast. I'm on Twitter, Brate Podcast. Instagram, Brate Podcast. I have YouTube, but I think I need to go back and make sure my YouTube links are set up so that you can see my posts again. But I do post my podcast on YouTube. If they haven't been posting recently, I do apologize. I will be working on getting that changed, because I did find out that that's another option for social outlet. So tiptoeing in my vent stage, and having to adjust because I forgot I got a little bit more time than I'm used to having. So I'm glad you all are listening. Keep on listening. Stay tuned. More thoughts in store. Hopefully next week will be even crazier. And if I got thoughts and I got information to share, trust me, it'll be out there. Feedback, suggestions, recommendations are all welcome. And until next time, this is BT signing out. Peace.